All right, what is up, PT on Ice Daily Crew? Got YouTube going over here, Instagram going over here. Let's make sure that you can all hear me now. All right. So, here on Clinical Tuesday, I'm Dr. Mark Gallant, lead faculty for the Ice Extremity Division, alongside Lindsay Huey and Eric Chacones. Again, coming at you Clinical Tuesday. As far as courses coming up, Lindsay is going to be out in Tempe, Arizona this weekend. So if you're out towards the West Coast and want to hang out with Lindsay, and I believe Megan Daly will be TAing, definitely hop on that and check that course out. I'm sure that I hear there's a camping trip involved. So I'm sure you're going to hear lots of stories either about that or the anticipation for that camping trip if you're at that course with Lindsay. What I'd like to talk to you all about today is I came on about 2 or 3 weeks ago and talked about what are main goals during the acute phase of injury. So someone comes into your clinic, direct access, you're their very first phone call, and you've got to take care of that irritated tissue. What are you going to do in that situation? Well, we really have five main goals. Number one is we need to protect the tissue. It was literally just injured. Let's go ahead and protect that injured tissue. The next is we want to create fluid exchange. We want venous return. We want good blood flow going to the injured area. We want to promote lymphatic drainage. So that's our second goal during the acute phase. Number three, we want to control inflammation. So both local inflammation and systemically. So cutting the alcohol, cutting sugar, getting rid of processed foods in the short term to make sure we really have inflammation under control. Number four during the acute phase is we want to calm down that sympathetic drive. Can we decrease the overall sympathetic drive of the nervous system to allow a more healing environment? The best way we have to do that is through deep diaphragmatic breathing. And then finally, all chronic pain patients were once acute pain patients. We wanted to get to that right away. So educating some on pain neuroscience, just sprinkling it in a little bit. Maybe you're going to do discrimination techniques, certainly starting with graded exposure, anything that you can do to influence all of those pain mechanisms early on to prevent them from becoming a chronic pain patient. So now we're going to move into the proliferative phase. So instead of the first few days after injury, now we're somewhere in that 3 to 5 day range, going up to 2 or 3 weeks. And really, this is where we start to see the initial phases of tissue remodeling. So we're really going to start building those injured tissues back up. But it's adjacent to the acute phase, so there's going to be quite a bit of crossover between the acute phase and the proliferative phase, with some slight adjustments as we move forward. So certainly there's still going to be some level of tissue protection. We're always going to want to promote blood flow, fluid exchange. Certainly controlling inflammation will still be important. We're in a society where everyone is ramped up in their sympathetic nervous system. So getting some parasympathetic drive is always going to be good for your patients, and educating people on pain will always be important. So it's not that you're going to ditch the initial five things from the acute phase. You're just going to shift to adjust moderately towards that proliferative phase. And the two big areas that we're going to see there are with starting to add load to the injured tissue and proprioceptive training. So with the proprioceptive training, we need to make sure that the body stays aware of where the joints relative to the injured tissue are in space. So we want to make sure that we're shaping that nervous system, we're keeping the cortex involved so that the body always has a good proprioceptive awareness. Now, our favorite techniques for this, when pain is not an issue, for the upper extremity, we love the bamboo bar. So getting some unstable pressing, whether it's overhead, bench pressing, overhead carries with that unstable bamboo bar, is going to do wonders for all of our proprioceptive mechanisms for the upper extremity. If you don't have the bamboo bar, we really like bottoms up carries as well, bottoms up Turkish get-ups. Those can do the trick as well if you don't have the bamboo bar. For the lower extremity, we like any unstable surface, so your foam pad training, getting to more dynamic activities on that foam pad, or our Y balance for our proprioceptive training. When you have someone who's in that proliferative phase, so that first couple of weeks, those mechanisms may be too much for the person. They may still be a little too irritable to go for bamboo bar training or for that foam pad or wide balance. So what we really like here is controlled articular rotations. Just how much global range of motion can we get through that joint to make sure the body is aware. Now, if we're doing the shoulder, the person may be too irritable to get a big full range of motion through that entire shoulder joint. You may need to just start arm down by the side in the smallest, whatever the biggest circle that they can tolerate. That's what you're going to go with day one. Same for that ankle sprain. Getting that proprioception by how big of an ankle circle can that person tolerate without going into an increased amount of pain. Then as they move into later stages, we can start to add the foam surface, the bamboo bars, those sort of things. So one big change is we're going to start focusing some attention of our overall treatment session into proprioceptive training. Now, the big one is adding load. We just said during the acute phase, we're trying to protect these tissues. Well, now we need to load these tissues. And one thing that's a challenge is we need to load the tissues or the region that was injured because they need the most nervous system input to allow the body to start laying down new tissue. So those fibroblasts are going to be at work. They're going to be laying down new type 3 collagen. Muscles are going to be laying down new tissue, bone, ligament, tendon. We need to give some direct input on how to best organize that tissue. If the body doesn't have any load, then it's just going to organize that tissue willy-nilly. If you instruct the body of, hey, these tissues are going to be loaded in this direction, in this manner, it can more efficiently lay down that new tissue. Those fibroblasts can lay down the new collagen in the exact line or method that they're going to need to be challenged, right? So if you have that inversion ankle sprain, the point is not to avoid inversion forever. We need to early on start getting some light stimulus into that inversion so that as the ATFL is healing, that the body knows, okay, we need to lay down collagen at the ATFL so that it can handle future sprains. Now, Lindsay Huey said a couple years ago at the ICE sampler that load is our love language. And this could not be more true. And when Lindsay said it, I think we were all excited in the ICE community about load is our love language from global exercises. When we're doing the press, when we're doing hamstring curls, when we're doing deadlifts, when we're doing bicep curls, load to those tissues is certainly our love language, but it goes way deeper than that. Load is also our love language on the cellular level. The basic cell structure of our muscles, tendons, ligaments, and bone, load is also their love language. We have all this research specifically from Karim Khan about mechanotransduction that those cells need load to appropriately function. And that is so true during the proliferative phase. Those cells need the stimulus of load, again, to know where to lay down new collagen, where to lay down new muscle tissue. If you don't give them specific load early on, the body has no way of telling where to direct that force. So it is imperative that we start to load these tissues early. Now, we need to protect the tissue still. These are injured tissues. So we're not saying, oh, day one, you've got to load as our love language. We've got to get these cells impacted. Go out and pull 505 off the floor. That would be ridiculous. We have to start getting light load through these tissues to instruct. So again, that might be just a couple degrees of ankle inversion actively. It might be your isometric holds and wrist extension for the lateral elbow, right? It might be an isometric heel raise for the Achilles tendon. We've got to get some relative pain-free load to the tissue to instruct those cells. What we typically recommend is 0 to 3 out of 10 pain is a go, as long as it's not creating physiological changes. So we don't want to see extra swelling. We don't want to see range of motion loss. So instructing your patients, hey, I know it may be scary, but we need to load these tissues pretty close to the exact mechanism how you injured it. If you've got that shoulder dislocation, we're going after abduction external rotation early on to load those tissues that way. You got that ankle sprain, we're going to go after those same mechanisms in that inversion sprain, but we want to do it in a pain-free manner that does not create physiologic swelling and does not create range of motion loss so that we can still protect the tissues while giving them the stimulus that they need. All right. So again, in that proliferative phrase, the big two changes that we're going to make. Number one, load is our love language. We have got to load those tissues all the way down to the basic cell mechanism with mechanotransduction and Krim-Khan. And number two, proprioceptive training. We need to keep those joints and tissues connected to the cortex and the central nervous system as much as possible. Hope this is helpful. I'll hop back on in a couple weeks, and then we'll talk more about the remodeling phase and the return to sport phase. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. If you can join Lindsay out on the road in Tempe, I definitely recommend jumping into that course, and hope to see you all soon.